to Chad Strand's real estate website. If you're buying or selling, he can help. His website is designed to guide you through the process. Call Chad today for a free no-obligation appointment. 612-849-4600.
Hey, what's up guys? In my last video, I spent the entire video pouring about 4 pounds of silicone over top of a fresh cooked chicken. A lot of you wondered why. Now it's been about 48 hours later and the silicone has fully cured, so why don't we cut it open and see just what happened to the chicken inside. Now the coolest thing about a 2-part silicone kit is both parts start out as the liquid, but when you mix the 2 parts together, it begins a chain reaction that cures the 2 materials into a silicone rubber. Silicone is a very cool material, and when it sets, it doesn't stick to anything. So by encapsulating my chicken with silicone, rather than wasting it, I immortalized it. Let me show you what I mean.
That is the chicken.
Now honestly, I'm really curious to see exactly what happened to the chicken inside, and I am a little bit concerned because one thing I didn't expect was the chicken was less dense than the silicone itself. There was actually one part near the end where the chicken started floating up in the silicone, which made me realize I probably should have weighted it down with a rock or something heavy. And this did get me pretty worried that we ruined the whole batch. I did try pushing it down with a spatula to hold it down until the rubber started setting a little bit more, but then when I took it out, I found a soft spot in the top of the rubber, which made me think we might have trapped an air bubble. Look at the bowls and look at the mixers. This stuff is really cool because it still looks like liquid frosting, but if you touch it, you can see it's quite rubbery. And where we've got the beaters here, we don't have to wipe that off with a cloth because it's not that messy. You can actually just grab it and peel strands of the rubber off. It's the coolest thing. And you can see it cleans up. You don't even need to wash it. Just pull the rubber off and it's as good as new. That's because silicone does not stick to things. In fact, the only thing that it really does stick to is other silicones. So by using a silicone spatula, I've pretty much ruined it because this has turned into one big block chunk of silicone. So unfortunately, we've got to throw that away, but that's really not that big of a deal. I wonder if you can make your own balloons out of this stuff.
Oh yeah, I do too.
Now honestly, I'm just as curious as you to see what happened to the chicken inside. And you can see 48 hours later, this has completely turned to rubber. I mean, I got my kids poking their fingers into it and you can see it's no longer a liquid. I'm guessing the chicken is basically just gonna fall out of the mold. The meat should be totally fine. We could just heat it up and have it for lunch. So let's cut this open and see if that's really the case. I decided to make my chicken mold in an acrylic box because that way we could get some different camera angles and I think it looked really neat. But I also designed it so that it bolts together, and the reason I did this is because this chunk of silicone would be extremely difficult to get out like this. But if we unscrew the different walls, we can take the panels apart and basically knock the rubber block out until we've got just one big chunk of rubber that we can deal with a lot more conveniently. This chunk of rubber probably weighs about 5 pounds. There's a chicken in there somewhere. If I cut away this top flap, you can actually see the chicken inside there, and it looks like cold chicken that's maybe a couple of days old, but no big deal. The cool thing is you can see the silicone isn't sticking to it at all. And we could just cut this straight in half, but I want to use this as a mold. So I think the best way to do that is to make kind of jagged cuts back and forth, almost like a saw blade, because that's going to help the mold close back together a little more seamlessly for when we go to pour things like chocolate and gummies. All right, the chicken is out and you can see the silicone has a cavity where the chicken used to be. That means if we mixed up some gummy syrup and poured it in there, we should be able to cast ourselves a lifelike replica of the chicken itself. And if you look at the chicken, you can see the meat's actually in really great condition and it tastes just like chicken, it's just a little bit cold. There's nothing quite like having cold chicken for breakfast. So check this out guys, my wife actually just went and heated up the chicken and brought it back so we could try it and tell you how it tastes after sitting in silicone for 2 days. Surprisingly, it actually smells pretty good. It actually smells as fresh and delicious as it did the day it came from the store. I'm gonna go ahead and let my wife have the first bite so she can give you some honest and genuine feedback about what she really thinks.
Tastes like chicken?
It's actually really good.
All right, it's good. Chicken is good, nothing wasted.
Because this sat in a block of silicone for 2 days, there was no air that was able to get to it, and so no bacteria was able to decompose it. Plus we had it sitting in the fridge as well. Still tender and juicy. Good.
Now let's take a look at our rubber pieces just to see how well they turned out. You know, surprisingly, I didn't actually find an air bubble in there at all. I think this was just from when the chicken raised up, it got really thin, and that's why I was able to push down on it. But the rubber seems to be in really good shape, and if we push the 2 pieces together, you can see all the seams disappear, and it actually looks very promising that we could cast ourselves a gummy chicken. What do you think? Should we try that in the next video? So we've got ourselves a rubber chicken mold. We've got an acrylic box that's designed so we can flip this thing upside down, pack it back inside and bolt it back together. And now we've got ourselves a silicone candy mold for making gummy chickens. So I went to the local super center and I got a ton of Caro syrup, some Jello, and some gelatin. I'm gonna make up a big batch of gummy syrup and see if we can make ourselves a gummy chicken. Will it work? Your guess is as good as mine. We're gonna find out in the next video, but until then, thanks so much for joining me for this experiment. I'll be looking for you in the next one. Talk to you then.